Okay, members of COM 382 Community Publishing. I'm sitting in Marion Hall 174 at about 1:45, which is exactly where you would be sitting on this fine Wednesday if it were not for a snow day at St. Joe's, which I wholeheartedly supported. But since I didn't see you guys last week because classes started on Thursday, I'm not going to see you this week. I'm not going to see you until next Wednesday, which is actually after the drop ad period. I wanted to give you a sense of what the course is about, what I'm thinking about, what the workload is going to be like, what the projects are going to be like, and so on. So I wanted to talk about the syllabus and the schedule, community engagement part of the course, the projects, and these reading notes that you guys started to do last night. The syllabus and the schedule are on my website, jmikelyons.com, under current courses. This course approaches community journalism or community publishing from the bottom up. I feel that often journalists, when they approach local communities or local issues, tend to do stories from the top down, first of all, so they talk to a lot of policy experts and different types of political experts and so on. But rarely in a story about homelessness do you hear, for example, the voice of a homeless person and their thoughts on how you might end homelessness. So this course approaches these stories from the bottom up. And the other thing I notice a lot with community journalism is that it produces a lot of about stories. So it produces stories that are about homelessness and about gentrification and about all these social problems that exist in these urban neighborhoods. But rarely are they stories for people who live in these neighborhoods or for homeless people. So that's another thing I want to attack in this course is how do we produce narratives and stories that are for people kind of engaging these social problems on a very personal level. So that brings me to the community engagement part of this. There is a significant community engagement portion of the course which will require you to go into the city. You will pick one of these two projects and you will be in the neighborhoods probably at least 3 or 4 times throughout the semester. The first project is the Mantua neighborhood, which is a West Philly neighborhood near Drexel. It's a working class, traditional working class, mostly African American neighborhood that is really feeling the pressure of being next to a giant or a couple of giant institutions, Drexel University and the University of Pennsylvania. And what we've seen in the city, in Philadelphia and many other cities around the country, is these giant institutions with the support of government and so on, really kind of have their way with these neighborhoods. So they want to reduce crime. They want to increase the number of suitable businesses to suit students, faculty, so on and so forth, to create this kind of crime-free buffer around the campus. And what often happens in that is that the families that have lived there for generations sometimes are forced to leave, either through high rents or just the loss of their cultural kind of compass in the neighborhood. So we're going to look at the group, we're going to work with a group of community group in Mantua to tell the stories of the people who live in Mantua and their thoughts about this change in their neighborhood. The other project is we'll be working with a group called Support Homeless Veterans, and we will be interviewing homeless veterans to try to understand how they see homelessness and what their experience is with it and how they might try to fix it. I'm less interested in the pathologies of homelessness, so why people are homeless. We know there's a lot of different reasons why, from mental illness to drug abuse to just bad luck to bad family circumstances, so on and so forth. Those are well documented. What I'm interested in is hearing from homeless people and their thoughts about how one can get out of homelessness and how we as a society can look at homelessness and try to curb it. The other piece of community engagement is there will be 8 to 10 students who will be with you guys side by side from the Science Leadership Academy Magnet School, which is housed in the Bieber Middle School. It's about 4 or 5 blocks from campus. So 8 to 10 of those students will come here every class period from 1 to 4 on, or 1 to 3:30 on Wednesdays. And they will work side by side with you guys. These are 9th graders. And we'll talk more about that next Wednesday. They will be coming to class starting on February 26th. So that's a kind of an overview of the class, where I'm coming from, what the projects are. Again, I want you to think about the community engagement piece of this, because it will require you to leave campus, and it will require you to go into places that are probably very unfamiliar and likely uncomfortable for you. So that's something to consider when you think about whether you want to stay in the course or not. As far as the workload goes, there's a lot of reading. The tricky thing about this course is there's really 3 pieces of it that we need to think about. There's the oral history kind of interviewing piece, right? There's how you do good interviews, how you get good stories, right? How you conduct an interview that gets you a story that's worth something to other people. There's the learning the issues that deal with these two projects. So Manchu has a whole set of issues that you need to learn and understand. Gentrification, that kind of thing. So I'll pull some readings, for example, out of this book, which is about the gentrification process in West Philly and how Penn, University of Pennsylvania, their role in this. The other book I'll use, or another book I'll use pieces of, is this book written by Daniel Kerr, and he did a similar project that what we're doing is he went to a lot of homeless people in Cleveland and simply asked them, how would you stop homelessness? And so this is a book about the history of homelessness in Cleveland, why it continues, and there's a whole bunch of very complicated reasons why, both political, economic, so on and so forth. So we'll pull from this. This will help you understand these issues. We also need to get our heads around the place that these stories play in the ongoing kind of narrative of these social problems. So what can we do about this? What can the stories that we collect, what can they say about these issues, and what can we do to get them into the public discussion? So there's kind of 3 pieces of it. There's a technological nuts and bolts piece of how do you do good interviews. How do you build a website that put those interviews on the website so people can see them? What are the issues facing these 2 projects? And how do we get those discussions that we collect into the public sphere? So those are the 3 things that we need to talk about. And that leads us to 3 different types of readings. For the last thing here, which is reading notes. I'm asking you to take notes on the reading that you do and then share them with me. So the readings will be 3 different types. There'll be the types that you read for today, which was the Alex Haley piece and the Alessandro Portelli piece on why oral history matters. Why are these voices that we don't often hear, why are they important? The other readings will have to do with the issues themselves. And the third the third set of readings will have to do with how you do good interviews. What are the ethical and legal decisions you need to make about interviews? So there are 3 sets of readings, and I need you guys to do these readings, and that's why I'm asking you to show me your notes on them. For 2 reasons. First of all, I want to make sure that you've done the readings and you've kind of thought about them. But secondly, I want to know what you think about them. Right? So that will help lead our discussion. And so I pulled out a couple of quotes from the readings I did last night and the readings you guys did last night and the reading notes that you shared with me. And I thought there was some interesting, you brought some interesting observations. For example, Carolyn, the quote that really fascinated her, which is an interesting quote from the Portelli piece, is, "This is even more true when folk informants are involved. They may be poor in vocabulary, but are often richer in range of tone, volume, and intonation than middle-class speakers who have learned to imitate in speech the monotone of writing." And so that's one of the important things about doing stories from the bottom up, is that we're dealing with narrators who aren't used to speaking to the media or aren't used to having their voices recorded. And so I think you often get a more honest portrayal of what they're going through. Another issue that a lot of you guys focused in on, which Alex Haley and Portelli talk about, is that history is often written by the victors. We've heard this many times. So those who win the wars write the history. But history itself is a political issue. The writing of history textbooks in many countries is a very politically contentious issue, right? It's who gets to tell the story of the national identity and the ideology and so forth. And so the issues that we're dealing with, gentrification, for example, much of the work on gentrification in West Philadelphia has been written by people from Penn. The president of the University of Pennsylvania, Judith Rodin, the former president, wrote a very well-received book about how you change urban neighborhoods. And that's one narrative on changing urban neighborhoods, and that is big university goes into these neighborhoods, helps reduce crime, builds a nice school, brings in a lot of middle class and upper middle class professionals, and the neighborhood changes. I happen to live in that neighborhood that she's talking about, right near University of Pennsylvania. My son goes to the school that she helped build. But there's another side of that narrative that's much less often heard, and that is the people that originally lived in these neighborhoods. What happens to them? So that's the story we'll be telling in Mantua. In the Support Homeless Veterans Project, the narrative of homelessness is often the pathologies that we talked about, that I mentioned earlier, which is homelessness is about mental health, and it's about drug abuse, and it's about alcohol abuse, and it's about crime and these kinds of things, which is, there's some truth to that. But there's a much larger, more important discussion to be had about the fate and the plight of homeless people. How do they deal on a day-to-day basis with homelessness? How are they trying to pull themselves out of homelessness? And what can we do as a larger society to help them pull themselves out of this? What is their experience going to shelters, for example? That's a narrative that's not often included. That's the story we're going to try to tell. So some other quotes that I pulled out of the reading notes from last night. Matt wrote, we also hope to be able to project worldwide a correction of something that plagues not just Black history, and this is from the Alex Haley piece, but all history for everybody, and that is that history has predominantly been written by the winners, which messes it up from the very beginning. So that speaks to what I was just talking about. Amber wrote in her notes, oral sources, and this is one of the things that I wanted you guys to wrestle with in this first set of readings, is what place do oral sources play in the narratives that we tell, right? There's a large amount of subjectivity in oral sources. You're relying on somebody's memory, and you're not only relying on their memory of facts, but you're relying on how they want to shape their memory when they tell you about things. So there's a certain amount of subjectivity to these sources that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. So Amber speaks to this in her reading notes. Oral sources tell us not just what people did, but what they wanted to do, what they believed they were doing, and what they think they did. And this is important to understand, that there are facts and then there are experiences. And so those are two different things. And so we're gonna engage both of those things in the first couple of weeks of class. So what I need you guys to do before next Wednesday is have a look at the syllabus and the schedule. Think about these projects. Think about which one you might want to be involved in. Each one has a limited number of spots, right? So you will be divided equally between these two. Each one will have, there's 16 of you. Each one of you there will be 8 spots in each one. So you're going to want to signal to me which one you're interested in doing, and I'll try to get you into the one you want to do. Mantua, again, is a neighborhood in West Philadelphia. Not far from here. Support Homeless Veterans is located in South Philadelphia, South Philly, on Fitzgerald Street, about 1920th and Fitzgerald. So some of the work you'll be doing, if you're doing interviews with them, with the folks from that organization, will be done in South Philly. So if location matters to you, you should know that. So that's what I need you guys to think about those. I need you to think about the community engagement piece, have a look at the syllabus. I need you to do the reading, right? And I explain the reading notes in the syllabus, how they're assessed, how you need to share them, so on and so forth. And that's it. So if you guys have questions, feel free to write, to shoot me an email, let me know what you think about the course. If you have any further questions, let me know, but do the reading. I'll be asking you questions the first few weeks of class about these readings. And we'll also be listening to a lot of oral history. We'll be reading a lot of oral history. And I think you guys will like it. I think it's the readings will be useful and interesting. Right, so enjoy the snow day. I will see you guys next Wednesday.